Good afternoon. So we're really whizzing along here. Today we are doing Putnam's Brains and Behavior, and on Wednesday we'll do another article by Putnam. This article by Putnam is one of the basic articles that set out functionalism, and functionalism is really science's philosophy of mind. It is the working philosophy of mind of any psychologist, biologist working in the brain. And this is one of the basic papers that we'll look at on Wednesday. But first of all, while we're thinking about the essay, I guess you guys are starting uneasily to think about the essay. Just two remarks about it. One is just to remind you of this thing about the first paragraph of your essay should be stating the main thesis for which you're going to argue in the essay. So there should be that soundbite, that headline, stating what your main point is going to be in the essay. And then the last paragraph has to restate what that main point is and summarize the way you've argued for it. And it's fine to say there is an objection here that I don't know how to address. You don't have to tidy up everything. You can say there's a powerful objection that I can't quite see how to address, but nonetheless I think my view is correct. Okay, any questions about that, what that comes to? Okay. And the other thing is just, I hope you've heard about plagiarism already, that some people have talked to you about plagiarism, but it's good to just go over this once. Generally, I hope your experience of the university is uniformly supportive. And in particular in this class, I hope you find everything and everyone supportive. Everyone wants things to go well for you. The only time the roof really falls on you in academia is for plagiarism. Plagiarism is taking a bunch of ideas from someone else and writing them down without saying where you got them from. Is that part okay? If you take a whole bunch of ideas from someone else, you write them down as if they're your own, that's plagiarism. And of course you're supposed to learn from other people, learn from other students, learn from your GSIs, even learn from the lectures, learn from the people you're reading. But you always have to say where you got an idea from if you're going to use it. A couple of things about plagiarism. First of all, it's really easy to detect. It's really hard. It's very easy for someone looking at an essay to see there's just some technical term that's not being used right. And you Google... I've had it happen a few times now that you Google up a sentence, you type in a sentence from an essay into Google, and then the whole thing just comes up on screen. And, the wired world makes it very easy to pick up when that's happened. And if we get an essay like that, then from our point of view, it's impossible to put a grade on it. Maybe it's something brilliant that got copied, but if we put an A on it, then that means that someone who spent 10 minutes cutting and pasting the thing from the web is getting a better grade than someone who beat their brains out for 3 weeks and got a B+. You see what I mean? That's not fair. We can't do that. So when we get an essay like that, we simply can't put a regular grade on it. It just gets an F. And once it's got an F, we have to report it to Student Judicial Affairs. And if it's happened before, then that may even result in your overall transcript being modified. So plagiarism is a really bad idea. It happens to, statistically, it is bound to happen to one or two people in this class that coming up to the deadline, you are really in a jam, your back is to the wall, you have no idea what any of the essay prompts mean, and you just don't know what you're going to do about this. But if you get into a position like that, then talk to your GSI, talk to me, talk to your friends, try and get a workaround, but just do not do this. Do not take an essay from the web. Do not take an essay from someone else. Is that okay? Is that perfectly clear what plagiarism is? And you see why people get so fired up about it. First of all, it's not fair if we have to mark this as if it was regular. And the other thing is, you guys are meant to be making your own minds up about everything, and it really, it would really knock the whole idea of a university to pieces if what it gave people was good grades for cutting and pasting for other people's stuff from the web. You see what I mean? Yeah, okay. Okay, so where did we get to last time? And if any questions come up about plagiarism, please feel free to ask the GSIs or me. Where we got to last time was, we were talking about how in practice you have knowledge of your own mind and knowledge of other people's minds. And I was saying, well, sometimes you know other people's minds better than your own. I mean, if someone's talking to you about whether they're jealous or whether they really care about some ambition they have, often someone who's perceptive can know about that kind of stuff better than the person can themselves. I think that's just a fact of everyday experience. And often enough, you find out about your own mental states in pretty much the same way you find out about other people's. If someone asks you, are you confident? Are you a confident person? Are you shy? How would you find out about that? How would you think about that? Well, you just have to think, how did I behave in that situation? What do I do in that situation? And you really use the same strategies as other people use to find out about whether you're shy or confident. So if you think of it like that, you often find out about your own states of mind in the same way that you find out about someone else's state of mind. Of course, you're very good at finding out about your own state of mind. You're really an expert in yourself. But that's all that it comes to. So then, if you think, what is the mind? It's a very natural idea at that point to think, well, having a mind is just a matter of behaving a particular way. That's what Ryle seemed to be saying. Being intelligent is just a matter of behaving intelligently. It's not a matter of something going on backstage. And that was that thing about writing stuff down on the board or thinking out loud, that all the mental state is in the behavior. There's no more to the mental state than the behavior. Here's the great philosopher Rudolf Carnap defining what A is excited means. You know how it is when you're excited? What does it mean what is it for someone to be excited? You ring up someone on the phone and you say, I'm so excited. What? I'm doing philosophy 3. What does that mean? Well, here is Carnap. That physical structure, microstructure of Mr. A's body, especially of his central nervous system, that is characterized by a high pulse and rate of breathing, which, on the application of certain stimuli, may be made even higher by vehement and factually unsatisfactory answers to questions, by the occurrence of agitated movements and the applications of certain stimuli, etc. Right? That's what you meant when you said, I'm so excited. I am inclined to give vehement and factually unsatisfactory answers to questions, right? So that's like the definition of excited. That's the behaviorist idea. I can just define for you what these terms like excited or being in pain mean by pointing to the kind of behavior. This isn't the same thing. This is saying I can define these terms. That's what excited means, right? That's what it means here in a mental state. In psychology, for a long time, there was behaviorism, which periodically seems to resurge. Behaviorism in psychology wasn't quite the same thing. Behaviorism in psychology said, you know how people talk about stuff like pain or happiness or being excited? Behaviorism said, forget all that. We're not going to talk about mentalistic variables at all in a properly scientific psychology. Psychology is the science of behavior, And these variables like happiness or love, in psychology we don't know anything about that stuff. We just want stuff that we can properly measure, quantify, do experiments with respect to. And we don't want to talk about internal processes. Just do the study of human behavior in wholly external terms. See, that's a different idea. Carnap's not saying, let's not talk about being excited. Let's instead talk about this stuff about behavior. Carnap's saying, all it means to talk about being excited is to talk about the external behavior. Does that make sense? In scientific behaviorism, they were saying, excited has to do with something in your mind, not with your behavior. But because of that, we're not going to talk about it in a properly scientific psychology. One way to put that contrast is, have you come across the idea of analytic or synthetic truth? No? Okay, listen up. Analytic truth. Here are analytic truths. An analytic truth is something like, after Monday comes Tuesday. Is that a big discovery, after Monday comes Tuesday? Could you understand what Monday and Tuesday were without knowing that that was true? No, you could not. Right? If someone doesn't even know that Tuesday comes after Monday, then that person doesn't even know what Monday and Tuesday are. If you understand the meanings of the words Monday and Tuesday, you've got to know that's true. Or if you don't know that orange comes in between yellow and red, then you don't know what the words yellow and red mean. If you didn't know that bachelors were unmarried, then you don't know what a bachelor is. So an analytic truth is one where if you just know what the words mean, then you know the thing is true. Yep?
But is that like necessarily like a kid that knows the colors yellow and red, do they like have to know that orange comes in them?
I guess you could know what yellow and red are without knowing that orange comes in between them. But you could. My question is, could you know what orange is without knowing that it's in between yellow and red?
I mean, like you can know what the color is.
Sorry?
You can know what the color is.
You could recognize it. Yeah. How would you be able to tell where its boundaries are? I suppose I show you a sequence of strips, right? From orange, gradually shading into red. Yep. And you know what orange is. Yep. But you don't know and you know what red is. Are you going to be able to tell me what the boundary is? Sorry?
Yeah.
Well, actually, that's fair enough. That is a very good answer. Okay. You're not going to be able to point to a bit and say, that's the boundary. That's correct. What I mean is, you are certainly going to have the common sense not to take orange all the way deep into the reds, right? Or at any rate, you know to stop at some point before you got to purple, right? That's all right. Yeah. So with orange, it's not just that when you get a central orange you can recognize it. It's that you understand that there's a spectrum here, and that orange lies somewhere on that spectrum. And if you didn't know that orange is a way of carving up a bit of the spectrum, then you wouldn't know what orange is. Yeah. There's more to say about that. I mean, that is an interesting question, that you could probably be able to recognize red and orange and then be given a shade like that and think, oh yeah, it could be a discovery that orange comes in between red and yellow. I see that. But I guess my point there is, it's not much of a discovery. The resources you had already were enough to give you that. You see what I mean? Yep. Yep.
I just think that presupposes like knowledge that colors exist on a spectrum. Like you can know what a color is without knowing that it exists on a spectrum.
You can know what color is. I guess that's true. You can, like, what about brown? Right? You can know that what brown is without and think, is that in the spectrum? Is that in the spectrum? It never occurred to me. Yeah. And you could think with red and orange and yellow. Yeah. You could think maybe they're all like brown. Right? Maybe I know what they all are, but are they on a spectrum? Am I getting it? Is that the question?
Kind of. I
Yeah.
guess what I'm saying is like if you show like what you just said, like you show a child an orange,
Yeah.
they would know that that is orange without knowing that there's like a spectrum of colors that orange exists on.
That's very good. Okay, so then my next question is, you know and I know that red and orange and yellow are on a spectrum. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. How do we know that? Did we do tests? Did we weigh and measure?
I did not. I'm sure
Somebody did it.
extracted UV radiation or something.
UV radiation?
Something
That's
wherever you get colors from. You know?
Yeah.
Spectrum, like the,
Yeah. But don't you just need to paint them? Don't you just need to paint it? What I mean is, don't you just need a spectrum? Don't you just need a rainbow? You see what I mean? You don't need to know anything about UV radiation or any of that stuff. You just need to see the spectrum.
But I don't need to see the spectrum to know what orange is. You know?
That's right. No, I really agree with that, and that is picking up in the last point. And these are really good, sharp points. Yeah. So I just agree with that. But the question is, when you do the next step, and you get to this fancy state of sophistication that you or I are in, where we do know that orange is in between red and yellow. My question is, how did we get to that next step? And what I'm saying about that is, we didn't need to do any of that stuff about UV radiation. If you just showed us a rainbow and said, look where the orange is, right in between the red and the yellow, we could do that, right? You could do that just by thinking about it. So once you knew what red and orange and yellow meant, you didn't need to have addressed the question, is the one in between the others? Do I even know what in between means here? Yeah, that's really the basic thing you're saying. I didn't even know what in between meant here. Yeah, but once you've got it, what I mean in between, and you've got it, what orange and yellow and red mean, then that's everything. That's the whole story. Yeah. Now I don't need any of that stuff about UV radiation. I can just do it right immediately now. So my knowledge of the meanings of those terms, and I guess really the way to put what you're highlighting is, what does in between mean? Yeah. I could know what orange meant without knowing what in between meant. But once you've explained to me what in between means, then I'm home. Then I know the whole story. Yeah. Okay. Without any further work being needed. Yeah. Yeah.
So would you say that just having an understanding that orange exists regardless of its existence on the spectrum is not knowing the full story, and then just knowing that it's between yellow and red is understanding?
Yeah. That is really an interesting question. I guess I would say it is just being able to recognize orange already takes quite a bit. Because of that thing about how it shades into other colors, you need to know something about when something is not orange, as well as something about when it is orange. You see what I mean? If you are good at saying a black surface like this is not orange, yeah, but then if I give you a red thing, you're at a loss. And say, is that orange? I don't know, hard to say, right? Then I think you don't yet know what orange is. Yeah, that's okay. So you've got to be able to tell something about where the boundaries between orange and red fall in order to know what orange is. But what I'm agreeing with I'm missing something about what you just said. What I'm agreeing with these last sharp questions is that you could know what orange and yellow and so on meant without having that idea of a structure for the colours. But you've got to have boundaries between the colours in order to know what any one of them is. Yeah. That was an astonishingly sharp set of questions. Yes. Sorry, say that again.
I feel like some of them were now getting into epistemology and technology. So, like for analytics, would it be correct to say that you would just think that we can state purely based off of the definitions and facts that we have at hand? And
Yeah.
we don't necessarily need the epistemology side to say that it's an analytic.
Some of that is right. If you know what the terms mean, right? That's where the thing you say about definition is right. If you know what the terms mean, then epistemology means it has something to do with knowledge, right? So this is about knowledge. You can know that the whole thing is true just because you know what the words mean. Yeah. So it's connecting terminology and definitions to epistemology. Once you've got definitions, then that gives you a little bit of knowledge for free. The knowledge is maybe not much. The knowledge is maybe nothing to write home about. Though, as these guys were pointing out, there's a sense in which it's substantial. There's a sense in which you had to do some work to get it. Yeah? But still, you had all the bases for your knowledge because you knew the meanings of the original words. There was someone else. Yeah.
Is that implying that qualia is a kind of analytic tool?
Qualia? No. First of all, qualia is a word, not a sentence, right? It's only sentences that are true or false.
No, of course. That's my feeling. And qualia, how do people feel their experience when they count it as an analytic truth?
Yes, that's a great question. If you know what qualia are, right? If you know what experiences are, then must you know that they exist? Is that your question? Is that? No? Everybody else is saying no. Have I? Did I miss the question? Tell me again.
So, orange, the knowledge about color is a kind of qualia, right?
Well, knowledge about color experiences is knowledge about qualia.
It's some kind of qualia. And when we talk about orange between yellow and red, it's about qualia, right?
Not the way I was using it. I mean, if I'm a great artist painting up here for you, right, and then I put a bit of orange in there, as great artists do, I put a bit of orange in it, and I say to you, look, I say as great artists do, that one's in between the yellow and the yellow and the red, right? Then I'm talking to you about my painting. I'm talking to you about stuff out there. That's not qualia. Because that can be taken away and sold. Yeah? You see what I mean? That very arrangement with the orange in it can be moved around the globe and sold. Whereas my qualia are right here in my mind, and they can't be bought and sold. Does that make sense? Yep.
I guess like the experience of Monday, like knowing that something is Monday. Like
Yeah.
You can't move Monday around. This is like an abstract title that you give
That's right.
this period of time, right?
Yeah.
So like I'm experiencing what I have labeled Monday.
I'm experienced, right? Yes, right.
So how is Monday then a qualia? Because I'm experiencing it?
No. Monday is safe, right? It would be it would be very upsetting if Monday turned out to be qualia, right? I mean, Jesus. This is a heady set of questions. Let me see. How could it be qualia? I mean, even if everybody died on Sunday, there would still be Monday, right? I mean, there would. Take my word for it. Even if everyone was knocked out and nobody had any qualia on Monday, right? Because they were all in coma, and then they woke up on Tuesday, there would still have been Monday, right? Surely. Okay. I'm holding on to the lectern here. Yes?
I just want to make sure that the knowledge about color has become an objective truth.
Yes, it is an objective truth. That's what I'm saying. It's not a truth about your mind. That is an important point. We'll come back to that. I can see that there are ways you might object to that. Yeah, but on the face of it, if I'm selling my colour compositions at vast prices across the world, if galleries are collecting them, if hundreds of years from now they're saying, what a good sense of colour balance he had, yeah, then that's talking something about my qualia. That's something about what I did with the paint and the canvas. Right. Okay, so much for analytic truths. So let's see what you guys think about synthetic truths. So, before we go on, when Carnap says X is excited means this stuff about behavior, is that analytic for Carnap? Yes, exactly. Who said that? Yeah. That's the whole point, right? That's why I'm bringing that in now. Because he's saying I can define X is excited like that, right? Synthetic truth. Synthetic truth is when you don't know the truth of the whole thing just because you know the meanings of the parts. So if I say there's a green fly on my roses, then you might know what green fly is and you might know what roses are, but not know that that's true, right? It might be a nasty shock. Yes? You didn't know that was true just because you knew the meanings of the words. You had to look. The whale is a mammal. You can know perfectly well what the word whale means and what the word mammal means and think that whales are fish. Gold is atomic number 79. Looky, here comes Cookie. I mean, I don't know what you'd call that exactly, but it's not an analytic truth. I mean, it might be a lie. You see what I mean? You can know what it meant, but not think it's true. Yes?
The thing I don't get about the whale one, though, is that, like, if you know what a whale is, wouldn't you know that?
Well, I mean, suppose you live in some part where whales are just what you cook and eat, right? Whales are what you live by. Your family has done this for generations. On the face of it, you know lots about whales. Your body may consist largely of ex-whale parts, right? So on the face of it, you really know a whole lot about whales, but you might well think they're fish. Isn't that right? Would you really? Oh, you must know they're a mammal. Huh?
So for me, that's like the Bachelor's Unmarried. Like a whale is a mammal.
A whale.
To me, the Bachelor's Unmarried is similar to a whale is a mammal.
Yeah, there's something really right about that. I agree that if you're looking at the thing and asking what is the thing, then in the case of the bachelor, that is, how should I say, deeply unmarried. And in the case of the whale, that is deeply a mammal. That is just definitely true of the thing. Yeah. But this is about the words and what the words mean. Yeah. And the difference there is you couldn't know what the word bachelor meant without knowing that it's a mammal. Sorry. I can feel my credibility diminishing by the minute. Let me try that again. Watch me very closely here. You might know what the word bachelor meant without knowing that bachelors are unmarried. Yes, isn't that right? No, wait a minute, I did that wrong again. Okay, let me take it from the top. You couldn't know what the word bachelor meant without knowing that bachelors are unmarried. Was that right? Okay, moving on. Whereas you could perfectly well know what the word whale means without knowing that whales are mammals. Yeah, and what you say is true about the things, it's just not true about the words. Yeah, there were a couple of. Have they gone away? Questions up there? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so that's synthetic truths. These are not analytic. Yep, that's all right. Happy with that? Okay, so analytical behaviorism was the idea that what Carnap says here, nobody really believes, right? You can't really, it's very hard to give a definition of a term like excited or in pain in that very sharp way. But what people thought really might be true, and this is what Putnam's attacking in this article, is there are entailments between statements about the mind and statements about behavior, entailments that are not analytic in the way in which all bachelors are unmarried is analytic, but nevertheless follow, in some sense, from the meanings of the mind words. So the idea is that if you say about someone he's jealous or he's thinking about arithmetic, then these entailments between jealousy and the way someone behaves, or between being excited and the way they behave, maybe you can't actually translate the talk about jealousy into a set of statements about how the person's going to behave, but you really are giving a classification of their behavior in a loose kind of way. I mean, that's very intuitive if you think about a word like grumpy. If you say someone is grumpy, you're not making any definite prediction about how they're going to behave, but you are saying something about what kind of behavior you can expect from them. In a loose way, you're talking about their behavior. So the reason you can't give definitions in the way Carnap thought is really for superficial reasons, like the greater ambiguity of mind talk as compared to the relatively greater specificity of overt behavior talk. Yep. Sorry? Did Carnap come up with it? I don't think Carnap came up with it. Do you guys have a bet on who invented analytical behaviorism? There was a group of people, the logical positivists, who were very friendly to behaviorism, and who I would think it was one or the other of the logical positivists, the Vienna Circle, who came up with it. Carnap was one of these guys, but I don't have any particular reason to think he was the one who came up with it. Yeah. Oh, yes, yes.
Like the sentence, like a Homo sapien is a mammal. So which kind of truth is that?
Sorry, which kind of truth is Homo sapien is a mammal? Yeah, that's a difficult one, because I guess Homo sapien is an internal term of biological science, yeah? And so within biology, you might not know what Homo sapien meant without knowing that it was a name for a mammal, yeah? It would be a bit like saying, well, you can know what water is without knowing that it's a compound. But arguably, you couldn't know what H2O is without knowing that it's a compound. You see what I mean? So Homo sapien, I guess, is a term like H2O. Yeah? Good. Okay, so Putnam has a very simple argument against analytical behaviorism. I mean, anyone's natural reaction to this kind of argument is to say, no, my mind is in here. The behavior is out there. When I'm talking about the mind, I'm talking about stuff in here. And it's not quite obvious, though, how far you can push that. Putnam's example is, he talks about a people who are, I guess, Spartans tended not to show pain, right? If you're brave and you are hurt, do you hop about and say, ouch? No. You might raise an eyebrow, but you don't hop about. So a Spartan feels pain, all right, but just doesn't show it. Is thought to be undignified or unbecoming to express pain. They might say they're in pain, but they always do so in pleasant, well-modulated voices. And let's suppose that as generations go by, Spartans are born that way. Initially, they need a lot of early training, but those that don't get trained don't find partners, and so it's just bred out of them, the impulse to hop about and say ouch and so on. Yeah, that could happen. That makes sense. You could be born. There's not that they're born without feeling pain, it's that they're born without any tendency to display signs of pain. And on the X world, Putnam says, people don't even talk about pain. They feel it all right, but they don't talk about it. So then you get people who feel pain, but it makes no difference whatever to their behavior. You have a whole society that is feeling pain, and it never shows up in anyone's behavior. Yep.
It cannot be argued though that it's just the way that we view that behavior, and in fact it could change that behavior in a way that we haven't noticed.
It could be changing the behavior in a way that we haven't noticed. Yeah.
Behavior is only something which you know and observe.
Okay, very good. Yeah. It might be showing up in ways, you know, maybe their earlobes twitch a little bit when they're in great agony. Is that the kind of thing?
Well, I was speaking more about things like if they got more aggressive. When
they might get more aggressive, yeah.
Well, the subtle things like that we wouldn't necessarily notice.
Yeah.
But it's just weird to think that. I know it's only an example, and a hypothetical example. It's weird to think that it happened now.
Yeah. Well, there are two things here. One is I don't see why it must have an effect. It might be that it gets bottled up at every point. I mean, I think that makes perfect sense. And the other thing is, even if it doesn't get bottled up at every point, if maybe maybe they clench their fists when they're feeling great pain, something like that. Or maybe, as you say, they get kind of aggressive in other ways. So long as that's not part of the definition of pain, because nobody's noticed that this is what's going on. Yeah? So you could understand pain, the word pain, perfectly well. Then saying that they're in pain can't be a way of saying they're behaving like this. Yeah? So the meaning of the word pain can't be they're going to behave aggressively if nobody's ever noticed that. You see what I mean? So that's just a way of making really vivid the idea that pain is talking about some inner state. It's just not talking about your behavior. What I said about jealousy and so on, it's kind of plausible for jealousy. It's not at all plausible for pain. Yeah, that's Putnam's main point in that article. Yep. Does that make sense? Yep. Yes, yes.
Wasn't like a really easy way to like see Carnap's like view on this is people who like don't feel pain. You know, there's like certain people that they can get like a cut on the arm and never know it and not behave that way at all. But then I know that internally, like the same whatever fires and it's like the
Yes.
same reaction. They just don't show it. Like wouldn't that be like a really easy way to say that behavior?
There is an easy way to get the effect. Yeah, but Putnam's thing is very extreme because there is a natural way for someone like Carnap to answer your point, which is to say, suppose I get cut and I don't show any sign of it in my behavior. Yeah, nonetheless, I may really want to. That's the idea that I'm bottling it up. Yeah, I'm not going to show it in front of all you guys, whatever pain I'm feeling. Yeah, but if everybody goes out, then I start to yell and scream and do all that stuff. You see what I mean? So I've got that tendency to do it if I was just let off the leash. But it's just that I'm not let off the leash. And Putnam's point about these people is, leash or no leash, they have no tendency to display it. But you can still make perfect sense of the idea that they feel pain. Yeah? Yeah. So it's just pushing your point a bit further. Okay. The thing is, I hope that seems very sensible, what Putnam is saying here. The thing is, if you push it just a little bit further, we tend to think that if you've got a pain, then you know all about it. But really, that's not true for many creatures. And if you think of animals, animals can feel pain. You can have a dog that feels pain, but dogs don't know about pain. I mean, they don't think about it. I mean, maybe they don't think at all. If you take fish, presumably fish can feel pain. Do fish think? That's like an article in the New Yorker. Do fish think? Anyway, no, fish don't think. So they don't think about pain, right? But they might have pain nonetheless. Thinking about it and knowing it is one thing and having it is another. So you can have the pain, and we tend to suppose that if you attend to the pain, then you're going to know that you've got it. Of course, that's not always true. We talked about people who are very distracted, footballers on a play or soldiers on a battlefield, who get their arms torn off and presumably are feeling great pain, but just don't notice because of the stress of the situation. There was for a while an actual anaesthetic in use in hospitals that combined a muscle relaxant with an amnestic. I mean, it wasn't quite known what it all did, but this was the analysis of what these things are doing. It seemed to work perfectly well as an anaesthetic. When people woke up from the operation, they said, "Has it begun?" I didn't know anything had happened. But the thing is, the drug contained a muscle relaxant so that you couldn't move at all during the operation, no matter what was happening. And an amnestic, so it did something to your memory. You couldn't remember afterwards anything of what had gone on during the operation. So suppose you're feeling everything as the knife divides the flesh. Can you complain? No, because you were a muscle relaxant. Will you remember anything about it? No, because you had the amnestic. So you can have a lot of pain, in principle, without knowing anything about it. Yeah? Would you wish to use such an anesthetic? Yeah.
You said something about how the Spartans or the people in the X world, they can try to like suppress their pain, and in the end they would have it. But you said the same might not be true about jealousy. Can you kind of elaborate on that?
Oh yeah, that's a very good comment. Can I postpone that just a second till I get to the end? Because I really that needs a bit of separate discussion. Okay, so we were talking about these cases where distraction makes you forget your headache. And presumably, if that's what happens when you're watching a movie or something, your headache's still there, even though you're not noticing it. Because having the headache is one thing, and knowing about it is another. So what Putnam's doing with that Super-Spartans example is he's saying, whether you have the pain is one thing, and whether anyone else knows about it is another. And what I'm saying here is, whether you have the pain is one thing, and whether you know about it is another. But if you push that really hard, then, after all, you could have super-duper Spartans, if you see what I mean. You could have Spartans where it's not just that nobody else knows about the pain they're having. They don't know about the pain they're having. Maybe they're all bred so that they don't even notice when they're in pain. They have lots of pain. They experience the agonies of the damned. But they don't know about it. Why not? So, you could call that a Y world, where the Super-Spartans not only don't talk about pain, they don't even notice that they have it themselves. And when you think about that possibility, maybe we are Y-worlders. And after all, maybe this whole room at the moment is an ocean of physical pain, a sea of suffering. But no one, it's all been bred out of us to display it, to show by the slightest twitch of an eyebrow that we have it. And maybe we don't even notice it ourselves. Maybe generations ago, back in the cavemen, this was bred out of you to express pain or to realize that you have it. Maybe the pain we do feel, that we do know we have, is just the tip of the iceberg of the suffering that we're all in most of the time. Yes?
Can you define pain, please?
Actually, I'm going to do that next time. I will do that next time. I don't think we're going to have time to do it right now. But it's the feeling. The simple way to do it would be to stick a pin into you and say, now you know what pain is. But I'll come on to another way of doing it. Actually, maybe we'll have time to get onto that in just a moment. Okay. The reason I push that example is that it's difficult to make too big a cut between mental states and their expression. Someone once said this about a friend of mine, and he is very intelligent, but in the whole course of his life, he has never shown the least sign of it. And there's something about that. That really can't be right? If you're that smart, you must show some sign of it at some point. Yeah? And that's the thing about jealousy. Who was it I saw about jealousy? Yeah. That was jealousy something like Putnam's point? Seems kind of crazy. If Super-Spartans get so that they never have the slightest tendency to express their jealousy, is there any difference between that and having jealousy bred out of you? You see what I mean? It would be just as natural a description of the situation to say, they don't feel jealousy anymore. So I'm saying I'm not that wild about Putnam's argument. It's a very natural idea. Look, the pain's in here, the behaviour's out there. I could keep the pain, but lose the behaviour. But when you think about examples like intelligence or jealousy, it's a bit harder to see how that would go. I mean, and if you push Putnam's thing to the limit, then you get my hypothesis that we're all feeling pain the whole time, but we just don't know about it. And that seems kind of crazy. Yeah, it seems like a more natural thing to say that we didn't get the pain at all in the first place. Yeah. Okay. let's go on just a little bit to the definition of pain. But Putnam, Putnam uses that argument to motivate a quite different way of thinking of pain than the behaviorist does. Putnam says there's a whole cluster of ways you explain what pain is. That's what I meant about that thing about sticking a pin into someone. Or you can say, look at Sally, she's in pain. There are 1,000,001 different ways of saying what pain is. Pain is that feeling which is normally evinced by saying ouch or by wincing or in a variety of other ways, or often not evinced at all. And you could think of explaining what pain is as a bit like explaining what a disease is. Suppose you think of a country doctor in a village where they get people getting characteristic symptoms of some disease. This kind of thing happened with Legionnaire's disease, for example, that you get a whole bunch of strange symptoms, and they go together. When people have that kind of cough, they usually have a bit of a fever. They usually have lost their appetite. You're getting the symptoms here that go together. And you say, I think this is a single disease. All these symptoms are symptoms of just one disease. So what you want to be able to do when you're finding a new disease like AIDS or Legionnaire's disease or Ebola is you want to be able to say, when I've got a whole bunch of symptoms that are all symptoms of just one disease. And you say, well, it's when there's a single underlying factor, like a single virus or a single bacterium or something or other, there's just one thing that's making all these symptoms happen. So then when you say someone has polio, having polio is not just a matter of having the symptoms of polio. You can have asymptomatic polio. You could have the virus, but not show any of the symptoms. Polio, the important thing about polio is whether you've got the virus, not whether you show the symptoms. So when people discovered what the virus was, they said, if you got all the symptoms of polio, but you didn't have the virus, then that wasn't polio. If you got all the symptoms of Legionnaire's disease, but you don't have the virus, then that's not Legionnaire's disease you've got. If you got all the symptoms of flu, but you don't have the virus, then whatever you have, that's not flu. So the idea is that words for mental states are like that. Pain is whatever causes you to hop, suck your thumb, say ouch, stuff like that. These are the symptoms of pain, and whether you have pain is a matter of whether the right kind of cause is there. Yep.
Like, can't you have like emotional pain without feeling any of that?
Yes, that's exactly right.
So,
yeah.
Eyes or like a breakup or something, you wouldn't be like sucking your thumb or like coughing, I guess.
That's right. That's right. From sport to sport, they hurry me to stifle my regret. And when they win a smile from me, they think that I forget. But I do not forget. The pain is there. Right. Sorry. Where was it? So you could have that underlying cause without any of the symptoms, right? We all know that. There's a pain in the heart, but are you going to show it? No, you are not going to show it, right? So that would be like having asymptomatic polio, right? You've got the polio virus, if you see what I mean. You've got the thing in the center, but you're not showing any of the symptoms. In that case, you still have the pain, even though you don't have any of the symptoms. So what you mean by pain, even the pain in the heart, is not that you've got all these responses. What you mean is that you have the event or the condition that normally causes those responses. Yeah. And then we can go just a little bit further and say what that cause is. Now, if you take a bunch of behaviors like hopping, wincing, crying out, sucking a thumb, yeah, what causes that? Well, it's your brain, right? That's what science tells us. It's your brain that causes your behaviors. So pain just is a state of the brain. We identify pain as whatever it is that causes all these behaviors. Behaviorists said we define excited as whatever it is that causes you to do all that stuff, give vehement and factually unsatisfactory answers to questions and so on. But that's not right. You say excited is a syndrome. It's like having a whole bunch of symptoms. And the key thing for whether you really are excited is whether you have the underlying brain state. Okay, more on this on Wednesday. Thanks, guys.